All right. Last of the Mohicans. Mohicans. It's Moon in the 12th house in Gemini. And let me just say real quick, when I go, like the first section, when I go into it, I explain it first because I want you guys to have the complete, you know, story. A complete, as far as most accurate and deep as you can go. And so that's why I do, the decorator in a house concept. I do that first. So going forward, you can carry that going forward. So when I go to like from, to the event to energy to event house, then you can apply the signs, in houses concept to that and get even deeper into it. So, uh, uh, so for the signs and houses like Gemini, Cancer, Ascendant, Cancer, first house, fourth house. Cancer rules the fourth house naturally. It's bringing everything from the fourth house. Cancer is bringing everything from the fourth house and decorating the first house with the fourth house, with the fourth house furniture. Fourth house is our innermost self. When the doors close, when the light, when the camera's off, and you close that door, you go into your room, and you go wherever you feel comfortable, and you can just let the inner self out. That's why it's the house of home, family, anything, anybody you're comfortable about, around. Anything and anyone you have to protect, nourish, defend. You have to defend your peace of mind, don't you? You have to protect it. You have to nourish that, don't you? Your emotional security. You definitely have to protect that. Peace of mind. It's another word for it. Psychological foundation. It's another word for it. Okay, so it's bringing Cancer is bringing all of that into the first house of your perception. You have the perception of somebody who has to be defensive all the time. They have to be like this mothering person. Like, and fourth house is also the mothering, the nature, mothering nature in us. It's also that vulnerable, like two sides to a coin. It's the mothering nature and it's the nourishing child. So, these people come across as that. That's their perception. They behave this way. For first house is behavior. Their attitude is this way. First house is attitude. And then you got Gemini in 12th house. Gemini is the decorator of 12th house. It's bringing third house up there to the 12th house and decorating that house with the third house of communication. Uh, you know, uh, uh, your local environment, your Walmarts, gas stations, McDonald's, just in your local environment, your local town, your local neighborhood. It's also third house. Your neighbors, third house. Siblings. So Gemini is decorating the 12th house with that, with everything I just said. Bringing the third house up in the 12th house of, that victim in us, right? The victim tendencies in us. Everybody has a 12th house. Everybody feels victim to something. It's the self undoing. It's the self sabotaging house. It's the house where, like, this behavior that you're doing here harms you somehow. It's an unconscious house. You're not aware most of the time when you're harming yourself. That's why it's so dangerous if you're not aware. That's why I like, man, 12th house to me is one of the most important ones. It's the most, one of my most favorite ones. It's the escape in us. Like we don't want to deal with reality, so we come to the 12th house. It's a house where you release grief and sorrow and sadness, all the things that we try and escape. And Gemini comes and decorate that house there. So you could say something like, Gemini, okay. You could say, you know, communication could be like your style of communication, like what you say, right? What you're communicating could be harming you, or how you say it perhaps could be harming you. It's probably how you say it. It's probably how you say it. I mean, I don't really know too many people like, no matter what they say, it's messing them up somehow. But you know, you with displacement, you would know, and people like this. Um, so now let's go from event to energy to event. I gave you the events of the first house, Cancer. So you could say, like, your perception, your general perception, how you perceive, could be harming you. Just simply how you look at things. Just awareness of this now. Now you know what. Now you know. You know what I mean. Now you know to do something about it. It's not like something like you just can't figure out anymore. Work on your perception. Generally, that's what you do. Now you know that, man, how I look at things like could be harming me, messing me up. Now what do you do about it? Okay, and then that turns into feeling. Because how you perceive the outside world, you feel a certain way, good, bad, ugly, whatever, and that could be harming you. That could be a means to release grief and sorrow. Like you could see something in the outside world and it could hurt you. And what you do is with this placement, you communicate that hurt. Because it's Gemini right there. And this is how so you release grief and sorrow. You're either gonna do one of three things. You're either gonna in 12th house, you're either gonna harm yourself, you're gonna try and run and escape it, or you're gonna talk about it, you're gonna get it out. You're gonna release it. So like these people, like they're so your behavior, like your behavior, you could be had a behavior of someone who always plays the victim, or they always feel like the victim, and you want to go deeper into that. Look at that decorator. Where is it coming from? That fourth house, that innermost self. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from the home life, fourth house, early childhood. I keep forgetting that, but that's fourth house. That's where it's coming from. That's why these people have the perception they have. That's why they behave the way they do. So you need to communicate, what your general, how you perceive your attitude, behavior. Make sure you have an outlet. Again, make sure you have an outlet to get this out, to release it. Like, and do it constructively. Because again, you're going to do one of three things. You're either going to try and escape to this imaginary world, right? Like some drugs or some alcohol, some escape tendency to where it numbs you and you ain't got to feel it no more. You don't have to deal with reality no more. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to get high. I'm going to get drunk. I'm going to go and watch some other show or escape to some other world. I don't want to deal with this. Or you're going to release it. Somehow you're going to release it. You got to communicating right here is really the thing. Connecting with someone else. That's third house. Gemini is coming up here. That's showing you how to release it. So you'll hear somebody, like their expression, they'll say something um, like this is oblivious sign, like a bit oblivion sort of like configuration placement, because your ascendant Lord, your entire life is expressed in the 12th house of unconsciousness. Like you're not aware of most of why your life is going the way it is. That's something these people might say. Now you know where it comes from. Now, of course, but that's before this video, before I came along and shined a light. It's just shined a light. Shine a light. That's astrology. Shine a light. Awareness. Now there's no oblivion. There's no. That's something that these people will say. They behave as if they're in a jail or prison or hospital like they can't do. They're institutionalized somehow by life. Life itself is the institution instead of it being a prison or a jail or some other institution. Something that these people say. That's how they feel. That's how they think. And so, like, Moon in the 12th house in Gemini, you really, really want to have multiple outlets to get your hurt, grief, sadness, loss, all these negative feelings that you want to release. You want to have ways, different ways to get that out, diverse ways. You know, your siblings might play out in that somehow, because third house of siblings is coming up to the 12th house. So maybe like sharing that with them. Maybe it has to do with them. You know, just um, and like your mother, right? Like she perhaps when she had you were under her wing again. This is the you know the main. This is my theory on it. This is the main concept of a mother and the effect she has on a child. Remember, the moon is the nurturing mother and the vulnerable child. Coming up, you're the vulnerable child. Your mother has to be the nurturing mother to you. And it's coming here in the 12th house. So your mother was really um was this way. She was like always like with her problems, anything that she was going to, loss, grief, sadness, anything that you want to escape. Um, Perhaps she always somehow you always got it from her to communicate these things, run from them, uh, express them, right? Release it, or harm yourself. Somehow this was communicated to you by your mother, and now she's still this way. This this is still what you see in her is what I'm saying. I don't want to say she's still this way, but you still have that connection with her. You still have that connection with her, that interaction. You still feel that. So, uh, um, you know, really here it's a really deep need for having versatile ways to release all the stuff that we don't want to deal with in life, that we want to escape, and you know, be aware not to just because you perceive things this a certain way, um, doesn't mean you have to, go off hurting yourself or you have to escape, right? Your behavior and your attitude. It's that of a fourth house person that's really like like protective and defensive, and like they have to really they like really crabby people, really hard to get inside of these people. They're really the most sensitive, that vulnerable child. That's why Cancer, anything Cancer ascendant, Moon is Cancer is prominent in your chart. These people, generally speaking, like the old, like they, it's hard to get past that crabby shell. The crab is the Cancer's animal. They sign they do symbol. Now you know where it comes from. That's that mothering nature. I have to protect. They got to be that crabby little thing, and to protect that inner child, that inner place, their peace of mind, their emotions, their emotional security, their mental health. So they got to build this home around all of that. So, you know, your behavior, your attitude, how you perceive life, how you perceive the outer world, man. Try not to let it, that be a reason to escape or a reason to sabotage yourself. Don't over attach yourself just because you see things. This is how I see things, and that's it. This is how I behave. This is how I am. And here, this moon, like you're attached to how you behave. Really crabby, could be stubborn and bitter. But as long as, and here's the lesson, as long as you aware of this, as long as you don't put too much into like, oh, why you're this way? Why is this? Why do you have this persona about yourself? Whatever that is, this crabbiness, this whatever, wherever it comes from, I know it affects you. Great, well, not great, but I understand that it affects. It affects you wanted to go off and escape. That victim in you, like you feel like a victim, so you want to escape, or you might harm yourself, not even knowing about it. But just be aware, just awareness, really, of where that comes from. Why are you this way? And don't be so attached to your past to where, like, man, you don't know how to deal with your problems. Always release them. Get them out. Release those feelings of grief, sorrow, sadness, whatever you're trying to escape. Release it. Communicate it. Whether you write it down, and here, let me end right here. If you don't have anybody that you can go to, like, this is really a placement for like Jay, the people that wrote like the Harry Potters. I forgot her name, but that comes from imagination. That's imaginary world, like the Lord of the Rings. That's all this imagination, and I can almost guarantee that this person, like from an early childhood, these authors and the authors that wrote these two books, like some in their early childhood affected them to where they had to somehow release and communicate, what was going on inside them, especially at an early childhood, and they found the outlet to communicate it and get it out in this in this imaginary world. So look at it that way, have it that way. Go and write some story or something like that about, some things that I'm like, man, why you are the way you are. Write a story, maybe a journal of all these like fictional characters that reflects what you went through early on in your life and why you're the way you are. Peace.